me, Renee. I'm back, and I'm here for a video that's been talked about. Well, I was about to say for a long time. It's just been talked about by me, but yeah, I've teased this before. Now it's here. It's my review of Prom Theory by Ann Labar. Also, yeah, different background because I kind of wanted to film it here. Don't really have a good reason, really. Yeah, it's not books, but yeah. So yeah. Also, how since this is Own Voices review, I'll probably interlude my review of this book by talking about how I feel, how my experience has been. So it'll be both a review and also like a chat, emotional chat, where I go into the nitty gritty maybe a little bit. And yeah, so let's start with a summary of this book. So this book is a YA contemporary. I suppose as you can see from the cover, but I suppose it could be fantasy, it could be other stuff. It doesn't have to be contemporary. It could be a fantasy. But yeah, it is a YA contemporary. It's based around sorry. It's based around the protagonist Iris. Iris, she is in her next to last year of high school. Her best friend, well, one of her best friends, is a senior, so a senior. Anyway, he's in his last year of high school, and so she's struggling with the aspect that he soon is going away. Like he soon won't be at the same school, and that's kind of difficult for her. But at the same time, like the main plot, I would say, is kind of like, so this book starts in April or May, and in the beginning it's talk about prom, how like okay, so sorry. So Iris has two best friends. Well, technically two friends, but yeah. So one of them is Seth, and the other one is the other name doesn't say it. Stupid. Let me give you a moment. Yeah, and the other friend is Esther. Esther is named on the back. That's kind of weird, but yeah. Her other friend is Esther. Esther talks about how she wants to go to prom, but she's not sure how to get someone to ask her and how to get a date. And so Ari starts to talk about how, well, prom and dating and relationships is kind of a science, so you can kind of manipulate people to ask you out on a date or out to prom. And Seth says, no, you can't you can't manipulate love. That's not possible. You can't like, love is not math. Uh it's not a math equation. It's not like something you can count yourself to and do like A plus B and then you have love. It's love. It's difficult. It's just kind of weird and out there, and it's not really doesn't really have any rules to it. Iris disagrees, and from this conversation, they end up making a bet. Iris and Esther will get prom dates by doing certain stuff. So they're kind of manipulating prom dates, and it's kind of experience. It's a prom theory. So that's kind of the base of the book. But the reason I was extra interested in the book, I had heard about it last year. Like when I always go check out what books are out next year. So I heard about this book last year. But then this February, I saw on Goodreads that this book was a book where the protagonist had non-verbal learning disorder, which is what I have, and I've never seen anyone with non-verbal learning disorder, like in general in the media, but at least never in a fictional book. Sometimes it's not on paper, so I suppose you could think maybe that person has, but it's never been sorry. It's never been stated that the character X has NLD, or NLD is what we say in Norway, at least like the shortening. I think in English you say NDL, but it's the same thing. So just knowing that this protagonist have the same thing diagnosis that I have, maybe immediately need to buy it. So I order it, and then I pre-ordered it, but it came up late, and read it, and yeah. Also because of like just the aspect that the protagonist has the same thing I have. When I bought it for like the first maybe 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 it was ended up like 50 minutes. I just looked at it. I just kind of smiled at it. I was just so happy to have it. I didn't start it because like I was just so happy that I had it in my possession. It's mine, and it's the concept of the book. I was just so delighted. So like yeah, just from pure ecstasy and happiness, I just stared at it. So because I didn't start it straight away because it's so important to me. Because yeah, as I said, I'm pretty sure that there's zero, no, none books with protagonists that has non-verbal learning disorder in them. So just seeing that representation in there is just so monumental, and yeah, it's just it's very nice and monumental, and yeah. So yeah, first like just kind of the aspect of this just kind of makes this book so important just in itself, really, like the concept of like just with this book like around it, like this could have been a book about a person living in eastern Peru, and or eastern Germany, or I don't know, in Portugal, and I would still be so into it because of the protagonist having NDL. Just that aspect makes it a must read for me. So yeah, and then when I started reading it, I just kind of ended up reading the whole book in one go. I started reading it. I think actually, yeah, I read it one day when I actually was off work, but it was Wednesday. Well, I had different working hours, so I think I started this at like 8:30 in the afternoon in the evening. Well, yeah, afternoon, evening, you understand. And then I finished it at like maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, I think. Because I think I finished the read it in one go. Maybe I went. No, sorry. I think I went to bed and I read like the last 3 or 4 pages next day. Anyway, I read it in 1 or 2 goes, so very quickly. And yeah, so I just I was just so excited for that aspect. Though now I'm gonna get into like the how I really felt about it. So just for the aspect of NDL, I had high hopes for it. I was just kind of so invested in it from the get go. I suppose, yeah. NDL as any diagnosis, it's not like the diagnosis means that people are exactly the same. It's not. It's like it's as anything really. Everyone with cancer does not experience it the same way. Everyone with dyslexia does not experience it the same way. There's different ways it manifests, and also people are different people. Anyway, so it's not like the diagnosis is your whole personality. I mean, people it manifests, and what it means for you is different from what it means for someone else with the same diagnosis. But yeah, what kind of bugged me about this, I would say in a way like, so I wish she like, well, from get go she's like very science focused, and she reads lots of science papers, and she goes like very deep into like the science of stuff. And personally, well, me, science has always been something I don't understand at all. I just don't understand it. Like, if a book has a protagonist that is in STEM, I'm like, cool, interesting. Might read about them. But like the logical behind science and sciences behind science and stuff, it's just way over mad. I'm in awe that I don't understand at all. So a person with NDL, I'm like, how can you be so scientific about it? It feels like maybe in a way like a bit robotic in a way, like she's very in the science stuff and like maybe a bit unemotional. And like my experience, at least for myself, is I'm very emotional. I'm like very. I talked about this aspect before. Like when I went to primary school, had this day where we were going skiing, Norway, and there was like the whole like everyone in our grade went, not just my class, but everyone in my grade. And a girl that I knew, I didn't like, she wasn't a good friend of mine, but I knew, I talked to her, said hi, and all that stuff. She fell while ski jumping, and unfortunately broke her leg, fractured her leg. And we were going ski jumping the next day. So, but she kind of just had to like sit there because she couldn't jump. So because of her hurting her foot, that day I went and bought chocolate and I gave it to her the next day because it just saddens me to see someone in pain. And she wasn't someone, as I said, she wasn't someone I knew or like an acquaintance or something like that. She was just, well, she was someone I knew, her name, and I talked about it sometimes, but she wasn't close to me in a way. But still, it just hurt me so much that she was hurting, and so I just kind of did that. And yeah, and like whenever like I see like some people, like if they hear about a conflict or like something is happening in the world, they're like, oh, but it's over there. So, and I don't know anyone in a small town uh, in southern Burma, so why would I care? But like me, if I see like me myself, if I see a news article, if I see on the news that this village in this country, even if it's far away from me, like if this village is being bombed so much, I'm just kind of like, why? Why is the world so sad? Why is there so much destruction? And it's just it kind of gets to me. It kind of really gets to me. Iris in this one, she kind of seemed a bit robotic in a way. Like, to get back to the book. I mean, she had emotions, but she was maybe a bit detached from them. So, to me, in some ways, I would say Iris, to me, seemed more like a person with autism than a person with NDL. Though then again, if you had NDL, you're actually on the autism spectrum. So, like, there's a spectrum. Like, imagine a long line. Suppose I could draw this, but I won't. A long line where you have like some people are over here where they they aren't verbal, they can't talk, they are perfectly intelligent and stuff, but they can't talk, they can't smile and stuff. And then you have people over here who are neurotypical, who are normal people, and then you have people in the middle, or like this, like someplace in the middle, who have autism, or like, yeah, different parts of autism. Some people with autism, they struggle very much in everyday life. Some people struggle less, and yeah, depends on how it affects you, really. And yeah, so that kind of bothered me in a way. And also, okay, so also a part of MDL is that we don't really understand social cues and like cues at all. So like if someone's talking about something subtly, or like if there's sarcasm or irony, or like if there's, for example, if there's some body language stuff, like someone's making a face, or like doing like a small tiny smile, like like, okay, so what does that mean? So we don't really understand stuff like that, and yeah, she didn't understand like all that stuff that was going on underneath the surface and stuff like that. Really, that's not something yeah, that's also something for me. I don't really always understand what's going on. Like, often when people talk and interact with humans, human to human, it's often a lot of stuff that's going on. It's not just hi. It's like a hi could mean hi, and then it's like means I'm so mad at you, or it could mean hi, I'm so happy to see you. I haven't seen you in years. But like, if you don't know what's going into the hi, you can't really understand it. Or like, hi. Or if you say like hi, like, okay, if you see them, they look mad, but if you hear them, they sound fine. So it's kind of double communication and stuff like that. And yeah, so Irish students didn't always understand what was going on, like in the conversations and communications and stuff, which I don't either. But I would say sometimes she kind of, I feel like in a way it seems kind of very uneven in a way. Like she seemed to have gotten lots of coping mechanisms, and she like she does pretty well in school, and she does some things very well, and then other times she's like just like, what's going on? And then I'm reading it like, you don't see what's going on here? You don't see what's going on here? I suppose that might be just simply because I'm 28, she's 17, so simply because I've lived longer than this fictional character, I kind of understand and know more. But still, sometimes you seem um, a bit too behind and a bit too stupid in a way. Not stupid. She seemed a bit too unaware in some ways. But she's a teen, and sometimes, I mean, yeah, teen doesn't understand all the stuff. So I'm gonna give it a. I'm not really gonna be that mad about it. I would say, yeah, I think that what most bugs me that is that she's so into science, and like I'm in awe of science and I'm fascinated by it, but I can't say I'm into it because it just kind of goes over my head so much, and I can't understand it at all. It's just kind of what? But like other than that, I did enjoy it, and also another thing that I really enjoy is that at the back. Give me one moment. Blah 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 blah. So here, there's like a little note on non-verbal learning disability from like this is a note from blah 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 blah. Sorry, a note from a PhD like professor, and then there's the author notes, and then there's acknowledgements. So there's lots of stuff like in the back there. So that I really like that. So like if you read this book and you haven't heard about NDL before, or you haven't heard much about it, you'll get lots of resources and stuff in the back. So that's very informative and good. So yeah, that was very good. So good. Um Also I would say, let's say something else. Blah 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 blah. I had a feeling. I had a feeling. Yeah. Also, something that's very typical for people with NDL is, I think it's kind of like a like important symptom that like you can have NDL without not having all the symptoms, but like one big symptom, but one very common symptom is that we don't really understand maths or mathematics. I think you just say math in US, but in British you say maths, and me being Norwegian, I just go all over the place with English sometimes. But yeah, and that's something that happened very much with me as well. I almost didn't pass math. I had to have math tutoring in high school. Luckily, I passed in the end, but I passed just barely. And yeah, so that's very difficult. And in this book, the author mentioned how so the author does not have NDL, but her daughter has daughter, her daughter has an NDL, and she talks about her journey with her daughter and how she tried to help her and stuff like that. And she also talked about how how her daughter now is actually doing a PhD or something like that, and then she struggled with that with maths, and now she's like doing it so good. I'm like, how can you be so how can this daughter be so good with maths? How is it possible? People are different. This is me just being simply very, very jealous. Very jealous. Me. Uh, it's not me complaining. It's just me being jealous, insanely jealous. Because obviously, I understand that maths is important in world and everything and stuff. So sometimes it will be very well to be more capable in maths, but yeah, maths and me, I just kind of given up on it. I have a rudimentary experience of it, but like an example with maths for me is like if someone says like uh, this page is 1589 zero blah blah blah. So like if a number is very long, I just kind of have to think like, okay, or like if I see a number written down, I often kind of think is this 10, 100, or 1,000? So like sometimes I get confused if the number is like 1,000 or a million or a milliard. So it kind of gets confusing there really. And then like yeah, so like just kind of big numbers is kind of difficult. And and also like on their visuals, like if someone says like there's a quarter of a mile is that trip, and like how long is a quarter of a mile? How long is 1,000 miles? I'm like, I mean, that doesn't really tell me anything. But like, if you say it's from that kiosk till the sea, I'm like, oh, okay, so it's that's how. So I'm like, if you tell me like about like stuff things that I know that I can relate to, it's kind of like, oh yeah, so that's how far it is or how short it is. That's kind of easier for me to understand and stuff. And yeah, also another thing I kind of wanted to talk about this book. I did enjoy it, but kind of things I talked about and kind of realized. Okay, so throughout this book, well, sometimes I get a bit confused when not often, but sometimes I get a bit confused with American YA books because in America you have primary and high school, middle school. Well, like often you just talk about high school and in YA, of course, anyways. Like high school seems to have 4 years, while in Norway the system is primary, middle school, and high school, and both middle school and high school are 3 years. So the first 7 years you go to one school, primary, and then you go to another school, middle grade or middle school we call it, or actually we call it youth school, but yeah, and that's from your 13 till you're 16, and then you go to your last school, which is from your 16 till you're 18. And so I suppose that will probably more likely be high school, but like sometimes I feel like is she 15? Is she 16? So like if they're 15 they have to be in this other school, but like in America it's different school, and it kind of makes it confused sometimes. And so sometimes when I read this I was like, okay, so she has two friends that are with her all the time. And like in middle school, my friend uh, Delio was non-existent. Well, I had friends in high school, well, in middle school, but they were more like we were both like socially awkward. So it was like hi, hi, and then we didn't really know how to communicate and stuff, and it was just kind of awkward, and cool, but yeah. And then in high school, I got a kind of, I suppose in a way, more close knit group. That like, but that took some time before I got them. And then like the other people, they had like lots of things that I did after school. So even if we hang out in school after school, they didn't have time. So I was just kind of, I want to meet people, and I didn't have time. So like with me, friends, I've either haven't had them or I had them, and the people I've been friends with have been very busy, and I haven't. So it kind of felt in a way like I haven't had friends. So seeing this close knit friendship group, and also in a way seeing friendship groups in general, actually in books, makes me like, oh, it's so nice. But also like, I'm so jealous and I'm sad and I'm just so jealous. So that was a bit tender, really, that aspect of it. And also the aspect like how there's a big focus in this book how her friends talk to her, like tell her about how you shouldn't do this, you should do this, and like they help her navigate the world. And as I said, my friends, most of my friends, I suppose when I became like 16, 17, 18, I was kind of had a bit more control over the world and stuff, so it wasn't that difficult. Like it was easier, still was hard, but it was easier. So I suppose I had a bit more control in youth school or middle school. I I was just kind of like, I don't understand anything. There was just so much sarcasm, so much, and yeah. In addition to not having close friends, I was also being excluded, and there was bullying and teasing and all that stuff, and they were talking me behind, like backstabbing and yeah, the usual stuff really. And yeah, And so, what was it about? Yeah. So in this book, her friends kind of help her navigate the world. Well, in middle school, the friends I had didn't really understand the world either, so we couldn't really help each other in that way. So that made me very, very jealous. I would say though that all in all, I gave this book 3 stars, not five, because I enjoyed it a lot, but I didn't love it because some aspects just kind of if me too much in a way. In a way though, you know what? Because I do like the characters and stuff, and I think at this what's the word again? At this point in time, right now, uh, this is a standalone as far as I know. It's anyway the first debut book of Ann Labar. Though I kind of think it would kind of be fun to have like a prequel. Like I think in a way, at least to me, I think this book maybe would be better as to kind of divide up into like trilogy and kind of follow the characters for several years, not just this one. It's not even 1 year; it's just a few weeks. So I think kind of in a way, I think it would have took advantage really of being kind of elaborate more and kind of drawn out in a way in a whole series. 3 books, 2 books, have more drawn out. Like as I said, when we meet Iris in this book, she has NDL, but she kind of seems in a way to have some stuff together. She kind of knows some stuff, and for me, it was kind of fun to like. At least I would like to. Yes, you don't need just that, but have maybe have one book or one chapter, one part of the book where she's diagnosed and she kind of comes to terms with that, and then the beginning after she's diagnosed, and then the end you could have this part. But yeah, I suppose that's kind of how it is. Like when you have no representation, you kind of have to be happy with what you have, and I'm not this happy. I am happy, but I suppose I kind of had high hopes, and they weren't really met. Like the hopes were like here. I would say like my how it ended up being for me. It kind of ended up a bit more here. Like it's not middle, but it's kind of a bit above middle, like in how much I enjoyed it, the book. So yeah, but I do appreciate like just the fact that it has representation is just so amazing. It's a great start. It's a great start. I mean, just that it uses its representation on paper, not just it's not just hinted at, but it's said NDL, and at the end you have all these resources, and yeah, just kind of okay, so this book came out in March this year, 29th March. I'm not quite sure how many how many people have read it, because I suppose it's not fantasy, it's not a first in series, people haven't really run out to buy it. Like, at least in my head, often fantasy books are the books people often just buy straight away, and the contemporary books, maybe people don't buy or people don't read straight away. So I'm not sure how many people have read this actually. Uh, I do hope that it's enough people around the book internet becomes aware of NDL, and maybe publishers think, okay, maybe we should write more people with NDL. We should, like, if an author has a script with NDL, I hope they get it. What's the word again? They get it accepted. So I hope that you have NDL with time travel, NDL with witches, NDL with contemporary people going abroad to England. I mean, lots of different NDL aspects, not just this one. I mean, you always want more than one representation. Really, representation. You don't just want the one. You want all of them in so many different ways. But yeah, it's just a great start. Hopefully it'll be a start. Hopefully it's the first of many. And yeah, so this is actually my first own voices review. And yeah, I saw Annalisa from Annalise Eli doing a own voices review of autism books. Sadly, and she did like her own voices, but like she had 4 or 5 own voices with autism books. I at this moment in time, this is one that exists in the world that I know, at least. Pretty sure there's no other books out there. I have Googled. Yeah, I've Googled. I found none on the books with NDL, and there's actually just two or three like non-fiction books, but like in fiction, no other exists. So yeah, this is uh not a not a video where I took several reads, but this read, as you already know. But yeah, hopefully it'll be the one first in many, many. And yeah, and I did enjoy it overall. I just was maybe had high hopes for it and high expectations for it. But I did very much enjoy the writing. I did enjoy the characters. I did enjoy the thoughts. I did enjoy it. I had some nitpicks that they may bother me a bit much and made it into a 3 stars, not 4 stars. It wasn't perfect, but like, I would say like, maybe it was like, I would say like a 3.5 stars, maybe a weak 4 stars. So it wasn't a bad book. I just had high hopes for it. And I would have liked some things like, yeah, I just had a few gripes with, like the fact that he seemed so robotic in some ways, sadly, like not so emotional in a way, and also like I just simply wanted more. I wanted maybe this to be a part of a series, or maybe the book could be longer as well. And yeah, but other than that, I I just had two gripes that was kind of big gripes in a way. But yeah, mostly I very much enjoyed it, very much. And yeah, so if you're in the mood for a YA contemporary that has a message and representation, but also just, yeah, it's kind of cute. Oh, it is cute and nice. I say check it out. And yeah, bye.